Hello. This is a welcome video. All right. So I've been exploring the idea of always being in a beautiful state. And that kind of means always leading with love and gratitude and never settling for negative energy, never settling for self-doubt or leaning into frustration and anger. So that's what I really want to base this channel on, is just teaching people how to overcome that day-to-day anxiety, survival mode, and really step into positive emotions, because that's what I've been doing recently. And it is true, you can live in a happy, positive state all the time. It's just a muscle that needs to be built. So here we go. I'm going to show you a little bit behind the scenes and how that is possible throughout this channel. And for now, I just wanted to go into some concepts that I've really been exploring, which is faith and spirituality. And this book is already changing my life. I'm only one chapter in, but this is Conversations with God, by Neale Donald Walsch. And while I've been on a crazy spiritual journey, and one that had its roller coasters of up and downs, I'm never one to really convert anyone or tell anyone what to believe, but I think that this book is important for anyone who really wants to make that positive shift in their life, wants to see their quality of life improve drastically with just a few mindset shifts. So just one chapter in, and I want to explore my background a little bit, just to show that I was not religious. My religious upbringing started with my parents bringing me to church, forcing me to go to church because their parents were religious, but my parents were never really into the whole thing super deep. I went to CCD, which is school where you learn about God and the prayers and everything, and I hated it, which this led me to kind of take a step away from faith, especially in my youth. I, one time in my life, did identify as atheist, and for a while I was just living in fear, honestly. I was living in fear. I lacked control and meaning to life. There was a time where, when I didn't have faith, I just didn't understand the meaning of life. I truly thought that we were just living to die, and that our actions had no consequences and didn't really mean anything, which is a terrible way to live, which I realized because in 2022 I stepped into faith. There was no big moment really. It was more just hitting the pain of fear and rock bottom and realizing that there has to be a different way. So I accepted faith. I became open-minded. When I say accepted faith, there was no identified religion. It was more just, I'm going to read the universal signs. I'm going to believe that there is a higher power, something out there that is greater than myself. And honestly, just the shift of accepting faith immediately brought me more meaning in life, brought me more positivity, brought me more sense of control, because it meant that things are happening for a reason. Things were happening for me, for my journey, for my development, rather than in fear. There was just nothing. It was just, there was no meaning to any of this. It was all random, and we were just going to die. Faith helped me see that life was a gift and that there is gratitude in every moment. And so today I just deeply believe in spirituality, universal laws, the higher power, a universal intelligence, and just oneness with everyone. Everything is connected in the universe, and I am just really trying to explore that and deepen that knowledge. I would love to explore my own soul and see how I'm really connected to everyone else. So if you call that looking or seeking enlightenment, maybe that's it. I still don't identify with a set religion, but let's get into what I've learned from this book thus far. I say that all with just be open-minded if you are going to give this book a read, even if you don't identify with God or a specific religion, because I've been open-minded, and so far I have learned so much that has helped me become even more grateful and positive in life. So the first thing that I learned is called the primary source. The primary source is where all thoughts originate from. So the thought behind a thought behind a thought behind a thought is the primary source. And there are only two places a primary source can come from. It can either come from fear or it can come from love. That's it. Those are the polar opposites of the universe. And this makes a lot of sense, right? So when you are acting in fear, you are contracting, you are holding on to, you're anxious, in survival mode, all these negative emotions that we don't typically enjoy feeling. But when you're acting from a place of love, you are expanding, you are letting go, you are in a state of bliss and just acting in alignment with contributing to others, with loving other people and yourself. So how does that really affect the way you live day to day? Well, when you think a thought or when you feel an emotion, I have now been asking myself, is this primary source from fear or from love? And the book really says to always lean into the primary source of love, because then you will feel more fulfilled. You really will eliminate a lot of those negative emotions, because a lot of them aren't even necessary most of the time, and we will get into that more. But that is an easy switch in the mind. Is just, if a thought is coming from a source of fear, ask yourself the question, like, what has really helped me on this journey of living in a more beautiful state is asking myself questions in the moment, day to day. Why am I feeling this way? How can I shift this from fear to love? That's it. The second one also is on the idea of love. And this is that when we are brought up, we are loved conditionally, which blew my mind. You might think like, no, my parents love me unconditionally. Like, I've experienced unconditional love, but we haven't. And that is the problem. And that's what in this book, God is saying, that people aren't aware of, that God can love unconditionally. He doesn't judge, he doesn't condemn. Anything you do is what you want to do. There is no consequence to God, but people don't believe that because it's too good to be true. These like little things in our lives that we just don't allow that type of love into our lives, because our first example of love was our parents. And for them, it was their parents. And for them, it was their parents, you know? And so that hierarchy has taught us that you receive love when you do the right thing, when you do the good thing, when you are in alignment with what your parents think is right. That is conditional love, okay? So just think about it. If you were being too loud that one time, or you were being too much that one time, or you didn't do the right thing necessarily in the moment, and you got reprimanded. I mean, I know my punishment was to sit on the steps and think about what you have done. And that is conditional love, and that is the love that we are then taught to believe that is right. So when you go and you love other people in your life, it's conditional. It's never unconditional. And so you have to really teach yourself that unconditional love, there is no right or wrong. There is no judgment or reprimanding. It is pure love for this person in anything they do. No matter like what they do that frustrates you, that's just an old building block of belief, and you can move past that and love them anyway, because they're on their own journey, and God has made everyone, the higher intelligence has made anyone, whatever you believe, what we have come into and who we are as a person in this physical form is perfection. There is no right, wrong, good, bad, none of that. So everyone should be unconditionally loved, even though we have been conditionally loved. I hope that one makes sense, because that one really shifted my mindset. I realized that, one, I have been conditionally loving myself. Like, do you ever do something throughout the day, or you ever have a really productive day and you're like, oh, I feel good about myself today? Or you have a bad day and maybe you didn't get as much done as you wanted to, or you overate, or you did some habit that you've been trying not to do, and you just feel bummed at the end of the day. You're just like, damn, like I could have done better today. That's conditional love. Like, we need to give ourselves unconditional love no matter how the day went, and you'll see yourself starting to grow and develop from that and feel more fulfilled, because you are living in alignment with God, the higher intelligence, whatever you believe. And so I'm really practicing this one from day-to-day moments. I'm really loving everything as unconditionally as I can, and in those times of frustration or judgment or doubt in myself, I totally see where I have been conditioned to love, and I'm just trying to rewrite that. Like, everything that you feel, everything that you think, all the language you use can be rewritten by you. It's a choice. Okay. And this kind of leads to the next point, is that good versus evil point is that everything in the universe has polar opposites. And you might say, well, if there's a God, then why is there sickness? Why are people starving? Why is there natural disasters? Why is there this? Why is there that? Well, it's because if there wasn't an opposite, then you wouldn't be able to experience the good. With that said, this is like kind of a higher concept, so stay with me here as I try my best to explain it. If there was no sick, how would you know what healthy felt like? You would be able to conceptualize it, but you'd never be able to experience it. And that is what this book is talking a lot about, is that these contrasts need to be so that you can understand who you are, what you enjoy, what you don't enjoy. If there was no contrast, you could never experience the true joy, the true love, the true fulfillment in what you want out of this experience, out of this physical experience that you are here for. And that's why there is contrast, especially with fear and love, because you can never feel love if you never felt fear. And that was really mind-blowing, because it's like, okay, if you're trying to live in a beautiful state all the time, going back to why I'm making these videos, what I'm exploring in my own life, and what I'd like to share with you guys, living in a beautiful state, you're always like, well, why is it raining today? Or why does this person make me so frustrated? Why? You start to question the things that put you in a negative state. And you realize, and you come to appreciate the things that are putting you in a negative state, rather than wishing they wouldn't happen, especially like little tiny obstacles here and there throughout the days, like bills and stuff that just builds up. You start to appreciate it, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is an opportunity for me to realize that I have it so good, that I have so much gratitude for my life when there's not this source of negativity in it. And the negativity can always be switched to positivity. Like, that's why they don't say this in the book, this is just a little off tidbit tangent, is that if you can be happy on a rainy day, if you can dance in the rain, then you've made it in life. And I've gotten to the point where I'm there, and it's true, because if you can see cloudy days and start to feel gratitude that we have cloudy days, because it makes you enjoy the sunny days just as much, if not more, you have won, baby. That is a beautiful state all the time. And it's a muscle you have to build, obviously. There's times in my life and throughout my days where I'm down, I feel the negativity, but it's snapping back into it. And so with that being said, that little side tangent, let's go back to the contrast of good and evil. So the contrast of anything, it doesn't have to be good or evil, but again, the question is posed in this book, okay, if there's a contrast to everything, is there hell? Does hell exist? Guys, I need to take a moment, because this answer was incredible. What God says is that there is no hell. The only hell that exists is that in the physical realm, that on earth. Hell on earth. And this is for people who do not take the time to create themselves, do not act in alignment with their highest level selves, those who make decisions that do not align with who they want to be or where they want to go. That is hell. You are living an unfulfilled life and living in fear, which creates the hell on earth, which is incredible to think about. Which is why you never need to judge somebody or condemn them, because they're already living their own hell. And you might say that doesn't really make sense, but this has happened in my own life. I've lived my own hell when I leaned into fear and I identified as an atheist, and I was only making decisions based on, well, we're all going to die anyways. I was living my own hell. I was escaping through any source I possibly could. I was numb a lot of the time. My anxiety was high. I was living in survival mode. I was honestly a myth because I didn't know who I was, who I wanted to be. Every moment was painful. And I think back to those days, and I'm thankful that I have figured out a way to overcome that, which is leaning into faith, which is showing more gratitude from day-to-day moments, which is living in this beautiful state. And that's why these breakthroughs were so huge, because it's so true. Everything in this book that I have read has just been truth after truth after truth. And that leads me into my final point, which is, get ready, because this was the most empowering perspective I have ever heard. We are not here to find ourselves. We are not on this earth to find ourselves. We are on this earth to create ourselves. I love that one, okay? Because I think back to, especially when I was in elementary school and younger, and finding my way in this world, I thought that, like, if I made a decision, I had to stick with it. I was athletic, I had to stick with that. I was shy, I had to stick with that. My friend group, I had to stick with that. This was me finding myself. I found it, and this is who I was. This is what I had to do. I couldn't change it. Even my career path as an SLP, it was like, this is what I picked. This is what I went to school for 6 years for. This is what I had to be. And reading that quote in this book is that we're not here to find ourselves, we're here to create ourselves, means that you can always do something different. You can always change directions. You can always find a new path, do something that inspires you in the moment, and then years later change it up and keep changing and do what makes you happy from moment to moment and be fulfilled and really just create yourself as you want. And that is extremely empowering to me. So that is a glimpse of these little breakthroughs that I had in this book. And if you are going to pick up this book or read it, I do recommend starting with an open mind, because I will admit, as somebody who does not identify with a specific religion, I first thought, what the heck, man? Because it's Neale, the author, saying that he asked questions of God, wrote them down, and from his subconscious, God answered them. So at first you might think, well, that doesn't make a lot of sense. How did God answer him? And trust me, I was thinking the same thing. But when you start to read it and you give it a chance, you have an open mind, line after line is truthful. So let me just review the points that I have learned thus far. Is that there are two emotions that come from the primary source. All thoughts come from primary source. It is either fear or love. Always lean into the love, never lean into the fear. The only way we've ever been taught to love is conditionally, so start learning how to unconditionally love yourself and to love others, and that is how you will feel the most fulfilled in life. 3, everything has an opposition so that you can truly feel the positivity and joy and fulfillment in life. You cannot feel love if you do not know what fear is. We experience everything, not just conceptualize it. 4, there is no hell. There's nothing to be scared of. You can make whatever decisions you want. You're not going to be reprimanded. The only thing that is going to reprimand you is the fulfillment in your own life. You can live hell on earth, but you'll always be able to change that. You will always be able to find your way, and that should be empowering. Number 5, we're not in this earth to find ourselves. We are here to create ourselves. And I hope you create a really amazing person, because it's there. You are there. It's inside of you. Always seek internally. And I can't wait to catch you guys in the next one. Bye.